Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to episode number 45 of the White Knuckle podcast, powered by Ozonics. Undetectable, undeniable. Well, hey everybody, thanks again for tuning into the White Knuckle podcast, episode number 45. Today is a fun episode for me, partially because I got to live a little bit of this with Todd, and partially because it's just a great story, and it'll continue to be a great story as we talk about it, and then as we eventually air the episode on the White Knuckle web show. So without further ado, here is my interview with Mr. Todd Relives about his harvesting of sweetness, Walter Payton. Hey everybody, welcome back to the White Knuckle podcast. Today I am joined by none other than the now world famous Todd Relives, the person who ended Walter Payton's life last week. Todd, how's it going?
Oh my Lord, dude, I still can't. Just listen to you say his name. It's like people are going to think I'm killing NFL running backs by the dozen, but it's been absolutely crazy. Like from highs to lows, like not only my season, but just like I was just talking to Tyler the other day about it. I'm like, I was on such a pilgrimage of predatory carnage for 22 days or something, I think, straight hunting and morning and night. And you get into a zone where you're just like, dude, I mean, between wind, weather, and sleep and eating and that business during the day, you straight up wear yourself out just emotionally, just constantly have to make decisions. And then when it's over, it's like reacclimatizing, and I've just been like a fish out of water. Like it's so strange to kill a deer that you've been hunting so hard that you put up on a pedestal of almost unkillable. Then you kill him, and then you go through all the emotions of that. And dude, the story that we're gonna tell on this animal is just absolutely incredible, man. It just like freaking chokes me to even think about. But holy cow, Jason, I've been blessed with a season. Like Walter Payton's just the tip of the iceberg as far as what I have actually been able to document on video, and just the sightings, and all the years and years and years of work and effort all start adding up, and each year it gets a little bit easier, while at the same time I think I pushed myself harder this year than I've ever pushed.
I think just from our conversations, I don't remember you pushing yourself quite this hard, although I haven't been involved to the extent that I was involved this year. We had a conversation 2 hours before you went out, and you kind of went over your strategy, and much like the summer of 2015 when you were telling me your strategy for the deer and getting them on your property. I thought you were crazy. I didn't think you were crazy this time. I loved hearing your strategy, and so you had a couple things happen to you this year that haven't happened before. I know you've killed 2 bucks in a year before, yep. but you not only killed 2 bucks, you killed 2 huge bucks that both ate freezers for lunch, and I mean like chest freezers for lunch. They're crazy. The bodies on those deer are just amazing. They make you look like you're 4 foot tall.
But dude, what the best part of the story is, like, dude, it was, I had the toughest, best season of my life, because I actually, the first buck I killed, the Donnie Brasco bug, I blew it on him 3 days before I killed him. I was out on a morning hunt, and to be honest with you, everybody will understand this if you're hunting a lot. And marital relations, my wife and I had gotten into it in the morning. We just got into a little spat, and I was just mad. I was so tired and upset, and I'm not a morning person anyway, if you know what I mean. So
I do.
I by the time I got in the blind, I wasn't even thinking about hunting. I was just there, and at first light, all of a sudden I look up and he's staring at me, and he had actually, I think, caught me putting my coat on in my blind, and as soon as I make eye contact with him, I'm like, holy cannoli, that's a giant 8, and it was mature. And as soon as I put 2 and 2 together, I was just like, holy cow, that's the buck that Donnie Brasco. His antlers were so big, it just kind of made his body look small, I guess, in trail cam pics.
Sure.
And that happens sometimes. And sometimes I'll just have the mindset of I'll just have to see him in person and I'll make a decision. And as soon as he was looking at me, like within, 1.1 seconds, I was like, oh God, I just got busted. And so anyway, he looked and he looked and he looked, and then he looked off to the side, and then he looked back in the blind. And finally, after about probably what seemed like 10 minutes, probably about a minute, he started walking again. So at that point, I grabbed my bow, got the camera moving in the direction he was moving. He stopped. I moved the camera too far forward. I reacted very quickly, moved the camera back, and he caught the camera move. And I don't know in that early morning light if he had just saw the reflection off the lens, because they can see that sometimes.
Sure.
Especially with a bright green food plot right outside the blind door. But anyway, he saw it and like, boom, he blew out of there. And I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, you gotta be kidding me. I mean, that was just handed to me. He was going to walk 30 yards right past the blind. And I'm just like, you idiot, so in the meantime, I'm sitting there like for 10 minutes, just like looking at the camera going, what just happened? And all of a sudden a deer just busts out right downwind, 10 yards from the blind, and runs and stands 20 yards in front. And it was that dude. I don't know how old he is. He's got to be like 8 or 9 years old. We call him Ham now, but he is the fattest, most giant bodied buck I've ever seen. And so then I'm like, do I shoot him? And he's got a small rack. He's probably like 120, 130 inch deer, but dude, the body, you saw the pictures of him online, I think, Jason.
Yeah.
The buck could give you a heart attack. And so I sat and I looked at him, and just in that moment, I was like, after just seeing that giant 8, that was the buck I wanted. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to shoot that thing. So got some beautiful footage. He took off. And then, 3 days later, I just had this sensation. I'm like, that while I was hunting out in that spot, it was the first time I had hunted it in the morning. And it is the most awesome secluded food plot right adjacent to a big buck bedding area and doe bedding area. And it's awesome. It is killer.
Is this the blind that you posted pictures on social media of, that you had brushed in like SEAL Team 6 like?
No, that's on the other side of the creek. This is the one in the sanctuary.
Okay.
That we walked adjacent to it, Jason, that one time in that bottom where I said everybody hunts. Well, dude, while I was hunting this, I had a parade of bucks coming from the blind. It was amazing. I was like, holy cow, this is working. The food plot, I planted a real world plot, and we didn't have much rain, but I went back in and reseeded over top with it, and we got the rain at the right time. But the plot had blown up and turned into just the most awesome secluded food source in the middle of just a huge section of timber. So, but the blind had now been there over a year. They had gotten used to it, and when the first buck just came strolling past at 25 yards, didn't even look at the blind, I was like, holy cow, I might have something here. And all morning, every 15 minutes, here another buck would show. They'd take the same trail in, the same trail out, and it would lead them 30 yards right in front of the blind. Perfect. And I'm just like, it's only a matter of time. I mean, it was very quickly came to my brain like, this is the big buck bedding, or this is the spot every buck's going to hit in this area during the rut. So like, I got to hunt this smart. But to hunt it, I need a southeast wind. You don't usually get a bunch of them, and this season we just happened to get a whole basically 2 weeks of them. So a couple days later, my brain and my heart just brought me right back out to the same spot. I honestly didn't think I would see that buck again. But just like clockwork, at 9:15, he came strolling in, looked at the blind just barely, walked to 30 yards. I grunted, didn't even have my bow at full draw when I grunted to stop him, because I knew I had one window and I wasn't going to screw it up again. And I just got my camera on it, zoomed in, hit record. As soon as he hit that opening, I grunted. He stops and he looks at the blind basically, or in that direction, and I'm like, okay, I got to get to full draw. So I just very slowly came to full draw, took my time centering my pin on him, and let it go. And as soon as I shot, all I saw was my lighted knock just go shooting out the bottom side. It looked like, I honestly, my first reaction was, holy cow, I just freaking brisket shot, or just bounced an arrow off the brisket of this whitetail. That's what it looked like. So I look at the camera and I'm just like, those are the moments as a hunting, filming guy, you want to basically crawl underneath your chair. But I just basically was like, I got to look at the footage. So I went back, looked at the footage, and I was like, holy cow, I actually hit him pretty good. A little back, a little bit low, but still looked good. So, dude, Tim, this I could go on for days about all the details, but to make a long story short, Coonert, my good buddy Brad Coonert, he's been on our show. He actually came down to hunt this year, so he showed up that morning, and so he was able to go out, track it with us, and I ended up getting, I got his liver and the back lung on the other side, and he ran maybe 100 yards, ended up dying right in his buck bed, which was probably the most unbelievable part of it, was he went right back to his home and actually, passed, at least in a spot he felt secure. So that made me feel pretty good. But, dude, what can you say? I mean, like a giant 160 class 8-pointer, one of the biggest, if not the biggest 8-pointer I've ever even seen while hunting. So,
yeah,
crazy.
Nearly a gross boon 8-pointer is a trophy anywhere in the world. And so not only did you put that together, you also got Walter Payton, and we don't want to give too much away because obviously there's quite a story to tell, and a lot of our listeners and folks that follow us on social media know the story of Walter. And I just got to ask a couple questions because I just want to see how much you made use of the tools that we have. We all know how much we love our Ozonics, so that goes without saying.
Couldn't do it without him, man. Couldn't do it.
Nope. Agreed. I would not have killed my buck had it not have been for Ozonics. But a lot of people know we switched trail camera sponsors this year to Spartan Camera, and they're cellular based. And I think we all learned that you need to have somewhat of a technical mindset when you're using them. But once you get them dialed in, I'm just curious to find out from you how much of a role the information that you got from them played in either of your kills.
Well, the first and foremost, like the way I use these cameras, like regardless of what people think, like you have a camera, you get a picture of a buck and you go out and kill him because he's still there. It doesn't happen. But with that being said, just knowing a deer's in an area, it makes all the difference in the world. And to be honest with you, when I got a picture of Walter Payton on the 14th of November in the middle of the night, he was hitting a scrape. So I had one of my Spartans on this scrape for him specifically, knowing that if he was in the area, he would most likely at least go in front of the camera, if not work the scrape throughout the rut, because it was close to his bedding area. It was close to a bunch of doe bedding areas, had all the right recipes. So on the 14th, I got two different pictures sets of him, one at about midnight and one at 4 o'clock in the morning. And just knowing what direction he came from and then came back from, I could see he was out looking. So a lot of times in the rut, the hard part is you get on a big buck like that in November, and they'll hook up with a hot doe, and the doe will take him wherever she goes for a day or two. So that buck can just be gone, and you don't know where it's at. So it's kind of like rolling the dice, which sucks if you're trying to kill one individual animal, because you just don't know if they're still stuck in their territory or if if they're hooked up with a hot doe, they're just not going to be out and about. So as soon as I saw he came to that scrape 2 different times that night, I knew he was running. He was looking for does, and that's the time you can kill them, in those different parts of the rut. So, that evening, the 15th morning, I set up in an adjacent bedding area for him. I'm sorry, dude, it was not on the 15th evening. It was on the 14th. It was the day before. So that next evening, I set up on the spot where I believed he was going to be, which is on that same cornfield. He didn't show, but I had that fresh intel. I had to try it. And part of the story for Walter Payton is a system of elimination. When you're hunting an individual deer like that, you've got to not only be hunting where he's at, but you have to eliminate areas that you're going to, not focus on in the future. And as crazy as it sounds, like when I was hunting this animal, that last field edge hunt, that one I knew was going to be my absolute clearer, my stacker, because I had put enough pressure on in enough different directions, specifically targeting that animal. I knew that was kind of a make or break. I was either going to kill him in that area that night, most likely, or I was probably not going to get a shot at him in that area again. Because on Halloween, dude, I had an opportunity at him, and I kind of blew it. I didn't know what he was. I saw him. I put my my vortex binoculars up on him, but he was far enough away through enough brush, and his antlers just blended in with the cornfield. And so I saw him at about 150 yards. I was watching him, and if I would have known it was him, I would have definitely not called at him. But I just threw a grunt thinking, hey, I'm going to get some footage of him. You know, we're out there to produce a web show, and that's half of it. You know, you got to get footage. So I ended up grunting, and he came right down to this bottom 40 yards from me. And at the time, I didn't even know who it was. I still couldn't tell who it was. Even at 40, it was just so thick between him and I. And when he didn't hear that buck up there making any noise, making any movement, or see any movement, he just turned to leave. And when he left, I got a flash of his rack and realized who it was. And I nearly pooped myself. He was the largest typical whitetail I've ever seen. And it was like a dream, kind of one of those things like, you know, if you don't kill him in that moment, you're probably never going to see him again. So as he walked away, I had to let him, because I knew he already knew something wasn't right. And instead of educating him, I would prefer to get a crack at him a different day. But lo and behold, I didn't know it at the time, but I actually have pictures of that deer coming back that night at 10 o'clock. And he went to a scrape, looked at one of my trail cameras, and the next set of pictures I have of him is literally following my scent trail into the woods right where I was hunting that night. So at that point, I knew, oh man, he's got my number, buddy. There's no way I'm going to ever kill him there again. But I knew his core area, and I knew there was only one section that I really could guarantee his location to be. So I proceeded to absolutely pound the living crap out of the area from all directions to kill him, pick up intel, or completely eliminate it from my hunting itinerary.
I'm speechless. It just the ability that these deer have to, you know, put the pieces of the puzzle together that we probably don't give them credit for 90% of the time is amazing.
They just, dude, the best way I can describe it is they're a creature of association, and over a period of time, having a bunch of encounters with a bunch of hunters over the years, you got to imagine what these big racked animals get just from the calling standpoint. You know, he's heard it all. You get one chance, and I blew it, and I knew it right in that moment. As soon as he was in that bottom and not moving, I was like, crap. Right about now, I could use a doe running around my tree going, man. So anyway, I kind of accepted it. It took me a day to get over it. You can only live so far in the past before you just move on. But thankfully for me, it was a very unique season because I had actually two different giant bucks I was chasing. One was Walter Payton, which is the giant typical. And then I had a legendary buck that has been a big part of my life for many years named DL, who is a 190 plus non-typical. He's got a typical frame, but just junk everywhere. He is something else. And so I was hunting him, and both deer lived in completely different areas of the property, several different properties actually. And so, you know, I was kind of like, I'm going to give it all for Walter, and then boom, switch gears, and then I'll go after DL. And so I basically was hunting two deer throughout the season. And then as the rut goes on, I just kept focusing on the doe bedding areas. And wouldn't you know it, probably 3 days before I killed Walter Payton, I actually had a hunt in a food plot that was set up for DL. I had intel from last year, footage of them in the same plot during the rut, during the same time period. And I was smart and left it alone until I think it was the 12th of November was the first day I hunted it. First time I hunted this food plot. It's my best food plot. And I hoped to see DL, and wouldn't you know it, right in the middle of broad daylight, about an hour before dark, he came popping out in the field, and there was a field full of deer. And he came out and put on a show, and I'll leave the rest to the storyline, but I'll just put it to you this way. Didn't quite go as planned. But I I will say I went from highs to lows, and by the time I got to the hunt for Walter Payton, I'd kind of gotten over it because I was like, I'm still a kid from Michigan hunting these deer, with a mindset that came from public land hunting. And I'm just like, you can't be upset about seeing these world-class deer. Like, it's so rare. It's so rare to see them. And I got beautiful footage of both of these bucks. Didn't kill them. So I don't know. I kind of reached that point where I just didn't care anymore. I had already killed that one Donnie Brasco buck, which took all the pressure off. And to be honest, I was just having fun. I mean, there was no better time to be a bow hunter than that moment for me. Just knowing what I knew, knowing I had so many killer spots to hunt that year yet that I was just very patient about it. But at the same time, I was aggressive, completely eliminating areas for both DL and both Walter Payton. What I didn't really know in the long story was how it was all going to interweave and the stories were going to combine. But it's something of a miracle in itself. And I just did. I still can't believe it, brother. I can't believe I got him.
I can. I mean, just in having the conversations with you, I'm lucky that I'm just a car salesman from Wisconsin, and I get the privilege of sitting behind the microphone and talking to some, pretty knowledgeable people, and just listening to you guys talk about your tactics, whether it's you or guys like Don Higgins or Jared Scheffler, or any of the people that we've had on the show, Dan Infalt, that know what they're doing. First of all, I don't think a lot of people give the animal enough credit, me included, until this year. And second of all, there is a science to it. There is a method to this madness, and it's not just, going out and finding a trail and sitting on the trail, although that certainly can work. If you want to kill consistent big bucks, and the guys and gals that do, there's a whole lot more to it. And as we have this story unfold, you'll see that in not just our web show when you see the story of Donnie Brasco or of Walter Payton. You'll hear it on our podcast probably throughout the coming year. So from that standpoint, it's exciting to me. Just to watch the show unfold and having the opportunity to talk to you on both occasions with Donnie Brasco. You had told me this deer's killable. I think I can kill him. I'm getting Spartan camera pictures of him. He's just way too visible for me not be able to kill him. So, I think you kind of said that was going to be your plan B if DL or Walter Payton, and maybe I'm wrong, but if DL or Walter Payton got hooked up with a doe and got drug off too far, you felt like this deer was going to stay in the area for some reason, and lo and behold, you went in there and got him earlier than I think what you expected to, but that's just the way it turned out. I've got to ask you, you seem to either kill in October or mid-November. Is that accurate from memory?
Yeah. After I killed Brasco, I was hunting those two big bucks. But before that, usually I go into each season, in this season particularly, I had a triple threat effect. One was going to be trying to kill a deer on my property. One was going to be either killing Walter Payton and or DL. And I honestly didn't believe my chances of Walter Payton were even close to what I had with DL, just because of experience. I'd been hunting DL for 3 or 4 years, or at least patterning him in my primary hunting area. From what I knew of Walter Payton, his primary core area was really not on a property I could hunt. But with that being said, over the last 2 years, I've been manipulating the ground. I was able to lease a farm. I was able to leave standing crops, start doing some hinge cutting, management on the farm, and using all these different tools to try to pull and change that animal's core area, and it worked. I mean, literally this fall, and this is the hard part, you're doing this stuff all season long for a buck that doesn't show up until the rut. I didn't get a single picture of Walter Payton until mid-October, in the 20s of October, and yet I had to mentally prepare for that moment. And when he showed up, the first trail camera pictures I think I sent to you, Jason, because I just got a flash picture of his side. And as soon as I got the picture, it it took my breath away. I I gasped. It's him. Oh my God, he's back. And he was he was even bigger, which was hard to imagine. But my God, he was I couldn't believe how big he was on the camera. Knowing his body, knowing I had a shed, and just putting all the pieces together, I was like, holy cow, he is truly a world-class buck. But I still, over the years, I just don't get my hopes up. I don't start proclaiming I'm going to go kill him and, all this stuff. To me, I feel like they've always got the upper hand. And that buck, I just didn't know if he was killable. I'd just never seen him during daylight. And I guess on Halloween, when I had the encounter with him, it made me realize, okay, I guess he is a killable animal. He's on his feet at 4 o'clock in the afternoon looking for does in the area that I set up for him. And it worked. I just didn't use it to my benefit. I believe if I wouldn't have grunted at him, he would have probably worked his way through the timber right to me, and I would have whacked him on October 31st. But as they say in croquet, everything happens for a reason.
So what makes and I experienced this year just I guess through watching the trail cameras from afar and having a constant tab on things. I killed my buck on the 3rd of November, and there is a noticeable, very, very, very noticeable difference somewhere, I'm going to say, between the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of November, all the way back to and this year was a bit of an anomaly just because everybody had cold fronts just constantly through that time. We'll probably never see that again in our lifetime, unfortunately, but, somewhere around the 20th of October through that 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th of November, those big deer were on their feet, pretty consistently. And as the closer you get to November, the more they're on their feet. And again, I attribute that to just watching Spartan cameras from afar, and then it just shuts off. It just absolutely shuts off.
The first week of November is tough always.
I don't care if I ever hunt it again. I mean, I guess I always will, but because
dude, and you were talking about all that cold weather. I honestly believe if I wouldn't have hunted so early, I started hunting hard on about the 24th because the weather was just too good not to. So I moved in before these big bucks were moving, and to be honest, that's part of the reason why I didn't kill him in that one territory. Was I went in there and I ended up blowing it out pretty good. Deer just got on my scent trail. They were downwind smelling ozone. The winds were terrible for where I was hunting, and it was kind of one of those, once you're up and you're through your hunt, and you're like, God, I should have never been in here. And I had a couple different things like that happen. I shot a doe. We actually have it coming up on the next White Knuckle web show. But I shot a doe pretty close to Walter Payton's main territory on like the 25th or 26th or something of October. And I'm just like, why did I do that? But at the moment, I talked myself into it. And before you know it, all of a sudden there's a deer getting shot. But, everything happens for a reason. You make all these plans before the season starts, and then once you get into it, all your plans go out the window, and you just have to adapt and do the best job that you can. But over this whole thing, I will say this much: creativity kills. You have to get creative when Plan A doesn't work, then you come up with a Plan B and a Plan C and Plan D, and my plan is always usually revolving around working harder and being more creative in how I set up and doing more run and gun setups, just so I can always be hunting fresh spots, even if I'm hunting in a small area, just to keep the deer guessing as much as they're keeping me guessing, so to speak. But we had southeast winds, east winds, like for, it was over a week straight, I think. And I was hunting Walter Payton really hard at that time. And so there was about a week where I was running and gunning every day, getting back to the house, getting cleaned up, getting a bite to eat, a walking zombie leaving the door, and then you still got to go run and gun and tell the story. So this season wore me out, but at the same time, I don't think I've ever taken a season so seriously. Anybody who knows me knows I love to drink beer, especially good beer. And about a month ago, I just quit drinking. I had to get healthier, work harder, and take it more seriously, because the way I looked at it, both of these bucks were worth it. And I don't know, I just kind of hit a different point in my life where I kind of got focused and realized, wow, what an opportunity I have here. And so I wanted to take full advantage of it. So I've lost quite a bit of weight over the season. And I humped, brother. Oh my Lord, did I hump. But how it all ended up going down, something I'll never forget in my whole life. I was set up in a doe bedding area, 8 feet off the ground. I'm not kidding. We got video footage of everything, the setup and everything. It's just incredible. And that Walter Payton came strolling through at 2:00 in the afternoon, and I actually timed it from the time I say I'm doing my interview. I just had gotten into the stand, and there's a whole lot of other story behind that. But I was doing my interview, and I'm always checking my lanes, looking around, even when I'm doing my interviews, because that's generally when it kind of happens. You have to. I mean, in this area, I have 20 yards. I had 2 lanes. I could see 30 yards, and the rest, everything was within 20 yards, the thickest, nastiest bedding area, but it was the spot. And I knew I could catch these big bucks cruising it in pure vulnerability, because no one in their right mind is going to hunt in there because you only have a 20-yard shot. And who's going to film an 8 feet off the ground? Well, I decided that if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So I set it all up, and I had 15 seconds, man, from the time I saw a flash of antlers. I looked at them. The camera was rolling the whole time. As soon as I realized who it was, I had to stand up quickly, get the camera moved on him, flip my LCD screen around so I could shoot. I had to get my bow around a tree trunk, come to full draw, and then when the arrow was let go, it was 15 seconds from the time I saw him. And I ended up shooting him in a spot that was, I got him, but at the time when I recovered my arrow and stuff, and I'm going to let the story play itself out on our web show, but I didn't think I got him, man. So I had a conversation with Jason about it, about 15, 20 minutes, half an hour after the shot. Jason can fill in the blanks from there.
It's a conversation I'll never forget, and neither will my boss. You don't know this, Todd, but my boss was sitting in my office, and Todd's on the other end of the line, and like I've got to hold the phone a foot away from my head because he's so loud, and he's so. On one hand, he's upset. On the other hand, he's just so excited. And I wish I would have had the video camera with me, because I would have taped it, because it was a conversation that I'll never forget. And I was just glad to be a part of it. And then, I'm just like, dude, put your brain back in your head and send me a picture of the screen. And finally, I got you talked into doing that, and you did. And I'm like, that's a dead deer. If the arrow really hit where it did, it's a dead deer. And it was surreal just to, even though I was hundreds of miles away, it felt to a certain extent like I was at least somewhat part of it, which was cool. And then to get the phone call from Katie that you and Tyler had recovered Walter was awesome. It was just awesome.
Dude, I'm so glad you didn't record that conversation.
My boss is like, "Holy cow, is he okay?" I'm like, "He's. This is just what he does. It's okay. It'll."
It was like I always go back to Barry Sanders. When I shot that buck, man, it was like the craziest setup, like the craziest emotions I've ever had. Well, this one was a whole different level. To know that I pulled it off, got it on video and stuff, that was all great. But like the emotional side is, dude, with the season I've had. And then to lose a deer like that, I couldn't even imagine, and my whole world was crashing around me. Well, at the same time, you're so exhilarated that you actually got the opportunity, you got footage of it and all this. So, by the time, dude, when I climbed down to look at my arrow, and thankfully I recorded all of this stuff, but I was literally, my arms went numb and tingly, and I thought I possibly was having a heart attack. I couldn't see. I was literally like almost blind. I was so excited and so scared and so shocked. I think I was in shock almost, like a traumatic experience type thing. And I look back at those recordings and where my mind was at all those. And in a period of about 4 hours, I pretty much had exhausted every emotion a man could get. And then we found him. And dude, it's something I'll never forget, man. It's just unfreaking believable. I can't believe I got him.
It's funny because you got them, and obviously we wanted to keep that on the down low, and we did. But I texted Buddy from Ozonics once. You said it was cool to let a few people know or whatever. I don't remember exactly how it went, but I texted Buddy a picture, and Buddy replied by saying, "Oh my gosh, if I shot a deer like that, I'd cry." I'm like, dude, you have no idea how much he cried.
Walter Payton was just never a buck. I really, really honestly believed I would that I'd get the odds on, so to speak. Like, I figured I had my chance. I kind of blew it, and I was just hoping for DL, had that chance and blew it. And by that point, it was just laughable, and I had to literally, it was just, dude, that's just bow hunting, I mean, it's just the way it all comes together. But, you mentioned Ozonics, and I know people get sick of hearing product plugs and all that stuff, but I'm going to tell you right now, there's something about when you're hunting a big, one individual animal. In order to kill that animal in my neck of the woods, the only way I can do it is by sacrificing huge sections in some cases, by blowing out huge areas with my scent and or accessing in order to kill that one animal. And to be honest with you, I don't care. If I'm hunting that one deer, I don't care if I blow every other buck, every other doe out of the freaking territory, if I know that that's what I have to do to kill that buck. You got to look at your goals. There's some people who are very conservative about diving into thick cover and all that stuff. I do it in a strategic way, but I think, that's what separates me from a lot of the big trophy hunters I know, especially guys who own land and manage land. They're very afraid of kicking deer off of their property so other guys can kill them or whatever. And after hunting these deer for as long as I have, I've gotten the faith that nobody else is going to kill them because they're not going to be willing to get creative enough and do enough in order to get the best of these bucks, because I spend my whole life almost every day doing this kind of stuff, and it's still very rare for me to get an opportunity, let alone, somebody who's just hunting, let's say a Friday or Saturday, and they do it, for a month out of the year. The odds are just stacked against them. So I really don't let that factor carry too much into it. But like, you're destroying sections of property by being out there with an Ozonics up in the tree. Oh, dude, it saved me. I mean, just where I killed Walter, my scent, I was in the bedding area, but just 20 yards from me was a field edge. I couldn't even shoot the field edge, to be honest with you. I didn't care because I didn't think I would see DL or Walter Payton out in the open. And my scent was going to be blowing all day right toward the food plot. And I knew how many does, how many bucks were going to hit that food plot that evening, but I didn't care. I had Ozonics in the tree. I knew they wouldn't snort. And I didn't care about the deer that were downwind of me. I only cared about the bucks that were going to be cruising through that thicket. And I knew I was going to catch whatever buck was going to hit that plot in that thicket before he went out in the open. That's just the way it is. I've seen it a million times. And, I just happened to catch him at the right moment. If my head was turned, dude, you think about the circumstances behind a kill. If I was 5 minutes later that afternoon, I wouldn't have got him. If my head was turned in a different direction when he walked in, and I would have just missed that first few seconds, I would not have gotten him. If I would have fumbled my bow one more step, I wouldn't have got him. If the camera arm wasn't in the right position when I was filming, I wouldn't have got him. I mean, there's just so many so many details that I still can't believe it. I still can't believe I pulled it off. I can't believe God gave me that opportunity. It's almost like that afternoon, he wanted some great entertainment from one of his human beings, and so he gave me an opportunity to succeed, and the rest of it was an absolute mess. I'll put it that way.
It's interesting. You look back on it, and you try to put the pieces of the puzzle all together, and try and from my perspective, I'm sitting here trying to go, okay, well, what brought you there? What got you to that point? And a lot of times as listeners, we're all looking for, that one thing. And I think the thing that I've taken away this year, just in all the conversations that we've gotten to have and all the different conversations I've had with all kinds of different people, it's that it's a cumulative thing. And eventually, it's never going to just slap you right in the face. I mean, there's going to be a time or two where you're going to have a buck that's, maybe using a food plot early in the season or something like that. And, it's obvious, and apparent what you need to do. But, would you agree that it's a cumulative learning experience? It's not just, one particular thing that you see. It's a culmination of things, or a cumulative effect. In terms of how you make your decision. And then would you also agree that it's different for every deer?
Oh, dude, every deer, every season, the weather, other hunters in the area, crop rotation, crops coming out earlier than you anticipate, crops staying in too late. There are so many factors. In fact, one of them, I mean, just for a reference, I have in one of my leases, I have a bunch of standing crops. Came with our agreement. And after he was done combining his corn, there was so much corn laying around the whole field. I just thought to myself, yeah, so much for narrowing them down. I mean, literally, there's a ton of corn. So I was, you just got to take it in stride. But, what I think of is what brought me to that stand that day. A whole lot of failures leading up to that. I'd hunted that same area. That's where Kyle and I got that beautiful footage of double dragon coming up, smelling the ozone the whole way right up to the stand in that double set. And that was kind of in the middle of the doe bedding area. And what I realized last year when in hunting that and actually getting busted, I think I blew DL out of there 2 different times. Once on our way in, we blew a huge deer. Could tell it was a buck when it ran, heard the antlers, and then I could smell him, and he smelled like DL. An old, big, dominant deer, and you know that smell when you smell it. So I tried one morning, snaking right in the middle, and he was up on the ridge, and he busted me again. I knew it was him. I could sense it just based on the sign, the situation. Like, he was absolutely furious with me that I screwed up his setup, because he has a killer setup. Little food plot there, you got all the doe, some water, and absolute cover where they don't have to come out. You can just stay in there all day. Acorns galore, beautiful territory, tons of cover, little openings. It's got everything. And I tried to put myself right in the middle of it. And what I realized is this spot I'm never going to kill that deer. I could kill a lot of beautiful 4-year-olds, maybe even some 5-year-olds, but I am never going to kill that top dog because he already has figured it out. It's probably an area people have hunted in the past because it's that aha spot. Oh, I'm going to hunt here. All the stuff comes together. What I didn't realize also at the time, the winds were terrible. They just swirled around. So even with Ozonics, you couldn't get a consistent wind to really make sure you could cover everything. So how I reacted to that situation a year later was by pulling that double tree set, no matter how hard it hurt to do because of the footage that you could get from it. And I moved one of the stands up in the thicket at 8 feet off the ground as that was going to be my Hail Mary set because it was so aggressive. The chance of getting busted were high, and I couldn't imagine shooting a deer of the caliber of these animals 8 feet off the ground. But sometimes you got to get nutty. And then the second stand, I moved a little bit further down the draw to where I'd seen a couple different nice bucks come down, and I kind of felt like I could sneak in from a different direction into that set without blowing out that core area, which I'd realized he's going to be bedded depending on the wind on one of those points, so that he can see everything that's coming and going off these draws, including does and potential predators. So I hunted the more conservative set one night, saw several different bucks, but didn't see DL. That didn't freak me out. And the next evening I was on the food plot, and he actually came out. So he was there. He just didn't move past my stand. And the next night I missed him. So after that I realized, self-filming on a food plot during the rut for 200 class deer is asking a lot. I need to narrow this down. And so my heart, my soul went to that spot. And thankfully, timing light up on the 15th. We had southwest winds switching to a northwest in the afternoon. And I was out there in a rainstorm that morning. We had rain, which allowed me to get in there without blowing everything out. I knew everything would probably be bedded up already. And I went out at first light and had a nice 150 class come right through. And then I had another young buck. They both cruised on that same trail right past me at 10 yards. And I'm thinking, holy crap, this setup might just work. I mean, they're distracted enough with the rut where there's no way a human's in here hunting us. I mean, nobody does that. You can't do it. But I figured out how to do it. So I had done all the work that past summer and got the stand in there. And as ridiculous as it seemed, at that morning, I realized I'm going to be spending a lot of time in this stand with west winds. If we have them, this is where I can kill DL and or Walter Payton, because I just had that feeling. I'm like, this is the one area where they can't resist cruising, because does are literally bedding all around me. And in fact, dude, I told you this when I climbed down. Most guys, Tyler told me later, he's like, I can't believe you climbed out of the tree. You should have been there all day. And I'm like, dude, I'm not an all-day hunter. I hate it. I always feel uncomfortable. I get cold in the morning. In this case, I was cold and wet an hour before it even got light. I was in there early. So once everything got light, I saw the deer movement in the morning. And as oftentimes between 10 and like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it's just dead. And that's the time where you're in a stand just killing yourself. So that by the time it starts to get good in the afternoon, you're completely wiped out. And I prefer to just get out. And I literally, first time I've done this, I think maybe ever, which was I left everything in the tree on a morning hunt to go back in the afternoon. Usually I always switch the opposite. I go in an evening hunt, and then I'll hunt it the next morning and leave my stuff in. So I left my bow, climbed down at like 10 o'clock in the morning, wanted to go back, get my Ozonics batteries charged up, get my clothes dry because it had rained that morning. And so I don't hear anything around me, don't hear any deer, but about an hour earlier I heard a deer choke about 20 yards away. I figured they were gone. So I'm climbing down. I have 2 sticks up on the tree. I'm on the top one. I put my first foot on the bottom one. I look next to my stand, and 20 yards from me, there's 2 doe fawns, or a button buck fawn and a doe fawn. I'm not sure, but they were both smaller deer. And just as I see them, one of their heads snaps and looks right at me, and I'm like, oh, crap. And instantly, I just jumped literally off the stick onto the ground and started grunting and just ran out of the woods. And I'm not joking. And I'm like, and they didn't snort, so it worked. I mean, at that moment I knew, okay, if I take advantage of this, I could kind of tell they were young deer, but I caught them by surprise. As soon as the one snapped its head and looked at me, the other one snapped its head to look at the other deer, and I had that one moment. So I just did it. So I ran out, got back. I talked to you on the phone that afternoon, I think. We had a conversation.
Yeah, just before lunch, you told me that same story, and I'm like, I was ready to call bullshit on that story, and I'm like, well, no, he sounds pretty serious.
But I told you, I'm like, dude, I'm in this spot. Yeah. It's so fucking killer. It's just like, I just had a feeling, but I kind of also had gotten to the point my season where you rush around during the day so much, you stress yourself out. By the time you get out there, you're just not having fun anymore. And I can do that to myself very easily because I have extremely high standards, more so for myself than anybody else. So I can drive myself freaking nuts. So I had just gotten to the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to leave. I'm going to have lunch, go to the bathroom, which can sometimes be its own interesting factor when you're up in a tree. We all got to go, right? So,
right.
So my routine is I like to go back for at least an hour or two just to get warmed up, get charged up, get the batteries charged, yada, yada. And so that afternoon, I was sneaking back out, carrying my little mini cam, doing an interview, and thinking to myself, I don't even remember last time I walked in the woods in the afternoon without my bow in my hand. But I knew I had to get back in that stand, and I had 20 yards of bedding area to get into it. And so I snuck in there. It's all on video. It's so rare. But I snuck in, filming the whole thing. Those does had left, and I didn't blow anything out. And then literally 10 minutes later, the shot was gone.
I like when you called me, it had seemed like I had just hung up with you and we were talking about your strategy for the afternoon. And then after we talked about your strategy and I agreed that it was a good place to go, then you told me that you had left everything in the tree anyway. I'm like, well, I'm glad I could help with that decision. But it seemed like it wasn't any more than 2.5 hours.
Yeah, a couple hours at top. I mean, I think I killed him right at about 2 o'clock, 2:10, something like that. I don't remember looking at my phone until 2:30 after getting the arrow and all that. So I just guesstimated 2 o'clock just for tracking, specifically for tracking. But, the other part of this is, I didn't think I got him, or I didn't know. I'm going to leave the rest of the details up because it's quite an emotional roller coaster ride. But thank God Almighty, thank the Lord Almighty, Tyler Tissue was in camp. Just 10 miles away or whatever, And so I called him right away to look at the shot. And Tyler's always aggressive about getting deer. So, he always tells me what I don't want to hear, which is he's either dead or he's not. You either heart shot him or you didn't type thing. And so thankfully he was here not only to help me track this deer, which was quite unbelievable, but just to film the whole process. And he did such a great job. And it was just to be able to share it with Tyler. He's killed some unbelievable deer over the years. And so for him to be on the other end of the camera running through the woods with me to find the biggest buck of my life was just something I'll never forget, man. And just thank to the Lord Almighty, we got it all on video, and just the storyline and everything. The recovery is just it's amazing, man. I cry thinking about it.
It was definitely a memorable experience. I'm very seldom am I at a loss for words, but when we talked, I was at a loss for words. I didn't know, I just wanted to see the picture, and then once I saw the picture, I'm like, all right, this is fine. I know you freak out about everything, so that didn't freak me out. But once I saw it, I felt good that I felt like you were in a good spot, and I felt even better that Tyler was there. So yeah, it was. You made my job this year a whole lot easier when Katie called me. I just said we just hit the equivalent of the lottery, in my opinion. So it was a lot of fun. And in addition to that, I think our whole team, took away a lot of lessons. Not just from this experience, but our team as a whole is just. It far exceeded our expectations, and we've got guys and gals that are still out there. You take our duo down in Indiana. I haven't had a chance to tell you about it, but our boys down there in Indiana, one of them passed up a deer that he felt a 3-year-old, and it sounds as though that deer may have gotten harvested, and we'll save that for hopefully a different show. But
dude, everybody's been stacking them up, man. I'll be honest, they've been killing some beautiful deer.
Yeah.
And antlers don't even matter. It just like Heidi Manley killed a really respectable northern Wisconsin buck. I'm so tickled for her. And we shoot the gamut on different buck sizes and everything, and combined with your season, Jason, and my season, we've had a heck of a season, and it's only halfway over. So,
and not only did Heidi kill the deer, she self-filmed killing the deer, and I don't know.
Did she really?
Yeah, she self-filmed it herself. Mike wants to kill a deer as bad as she does, so he's like, "Yeah, go hunting, but do it yourself." And she self-filmed it. I mean, she's the real deal. So. Yeah, I mean, we'll get her on someday to tell her story, and you'll obviously see it on one of the web shows. But her and Mike definitely stepped up their game this year, boy. And then we just got some real gems in everybody. I know our guys in Michigan didn't do as well as they hoped, but I think by and large they had a pretty good season. Bruce
Ripka just killed a really nice 8-pointer with his gun, and they got a great story on him. And Walter Easling's been hunting his butt off for a really nice buck up there, passing a lot of deer as well. So Walter's always hilarious to watch on film. He's quite an entertainer and quite emotionally passionate about hunting as well. So I always look forward to seeing his stuff. And I mean, just in general, I think hunters in general, just based on what I've seen on Facebook, I think we've all taken advantage of the beautiful weather we've had this rut, because there have been some absolute slammers killed in Iowa, Kansas, Wisconsin, across the board, Kentucky, Missouri. I've seen some slammers come out of, Missouri, and Indiana, Michigan, even. I mean, it's just been a heck of a rut, and I think a lot of it goes right back to that weather.
Well, hey, we're nearing the end. Have you got anything else that you want to share with respect to your hunt for Walter Payton? Like anything in particular that stood out in your mind?
Okay, well, one of the things, and it's not. This is something that just kind of came to fruition as my hunt for Walter Payton progressed, and as I started to realize I'd put too much pressure on that area, and I knew where his core area was, at least to the best of my knowledge. and it was not on a piece of property I could hunt. I had a relationship with the landowner who owned the piece next to it. I have talked with him, known him for years. A nice guy, pretty stern, never let me hunt ever before. And I knew some other guys hunted on there, but you get to that point where you've got no other options. You've got to try. And so that's always been my mentality, and has killed a ton of bucks for me over the years, is just doing whatever it takes. And if that means talking to landowners, knocking on doors, calling people, like, those are some of the things that kill big deer. It's not just putting in stand hours in areas that you're never going to kill that deer. And I've done enough of that over the years. So I actually called this landowner and I said, he knows who I am and everything. And I told him, and I said, hey, I'm calling to ask you a favor. And I just want to let you know I have to, I just have to, because I'm chasing this really nice buck. He's the biggest buck I've ever seen around here. And I have a pretty good feeling I know where he's living. And so I told him specifically where I thought the deer was living. And I said, is there any way that you might let me hunt in there even for a short period of time? And he said, well, no. I've got some other guys that are hunting in there. And at least right now, I just have to say no. So he's got a couple good friends. I know the relationship, this type of a situation where, they're going to certainly take precedence over myself, because they're his close relatives, family, friends, whatever, that hunt. But I knew enough about the property just from scouting around it, and just by aerials and just, boots on the ground, and hunting adjacent to it and watching certain sections of it, specifically for Walter Payton, where I had a pretty good idea where he was at, and I knew I could kill him coming off of this creek. But no one else can get in that way. I'm the only one, and it's not easy, trust me. But that's how I was hunting Walter in one area, and I knew I could continue that little journey into the spot I believed where his core area was. But knowing where these guys hunted, I knew I had to do something, because I wasn't going to kill him if I couldn't get in there, or if somebody didn't blow him out. So I set the stage. I literally told the landowner, I told him where the buck was, and I said, yeah, he's big. He's one of the biggest ones I'd ever seen. And he even said something along the lines of, boy, I haven't even seen anything. He's out in his combine. I haven't seen any giant deer running around. I said, well, he's the biggest one I've seen for a long time. And I made sure he knew exactly where it was, within probably 100 yards. I'm not joking. But I know how these guys get to their stands. And I knew there was no way they were going to get in there without blowing that deer out. 3 days later, I killed him. I don't know if he ever talked to those guys and told them what I told them, but I'm pretty sure he did. And I'm pretty sure they probably went right in there, put in some pressure, blew him out of his core area, and that's how I ended up catching him on a cruising spot, which is a guaranteed during the rut. This is the spot where all the does are. But I truly believe that was a part of the picture with killing him. And I've told a few people about that, and they just laugh, because it goes against everything you're ever told about hunting whitetails, which is don't let anybody know what you're hunting.
Right.
Well, you can't kill them if you can't access them. So let somebody else blow them out for you. And that's what I had to do.
Right, and it was a win-win no matter what the outcome. If you would have said yes, well, that's a win. And if
when I called him, I knew I was taking that chance, because as soon as I called him and he picked up the phone and I told him the story, that deer, people are going to know what it takes for me to call a farmer, and whether I don't have all the stickers, I don't talk about doing web shows, I don't talk about doing podcasts, I fly under the radar. I'm a whitetail hunter, bow hunter, and I film my stuff, and that's kind of just where it lays. I don't promote myself any more than that.
Right.
It's hard enough to kill these big bucks. So, right. I just don't want the attention, but sometimes you just got to follow your heart and your gut. And for better or for worse, when I hung up the phone, I said, I felt a sick stomach or feeling in my stomach. I thought, man, I may have said too much. And then I just kind of went right back to, well, they haven't killed him yet, so I know they're probably going to go in there, start rattling and grunting and carrying on like they have every other year. And then he'll know where he's not going to spend the next couple days, and hopefully it's going to be in an area I can hunt. But it was a 50-50 shot. He could have went the other way.
Right.
I don't know what the other reaches, in a different direction where he goes, but I knew he didn't spend his life on my property. It was one of those satellite things where he'd come check ours, and then he'd go check the other spots that I couldn't hunt. And just nuts, man. Just crazy how it all works out.
There's a tactic you're not going to see on the Outdoor Channel.
And nobody's probably crazy enough to talk about it. But this is stuff that...
it's real world, man.
Dude, it goes back to all those years spending in camp with some really exceptional hunters, and that, dude, you got to be creative. No idea is a bad idea, because every other idea that every other hunter has had on that whitetail has failed. So you got to get creative. I mean, it's very statistically improbable that you're ever going to call that deer in. You're never going to rattle him in. If you grunt at him and he comes half the distance and he doesn't hear the movement up there, he's not going to just keep strolling because, damn, that's a nice looking ridge. That's a human thing. We want to stroll on that ridge because it's got a cool trail and a bunch of rubs on it. He doesn't want to stroll anywhere. He wants a doe and he wants a breeder, and that's all he cares about.
Right. And what's the path of least resistance to doing that? And when you start to look at things from that perspective, and just I'll get off track for just a second, and then we'll close out the show. Actually, I got two things that I want to say. We talk about the path of least resistance. The deer that I shot, I hunted that property twice. The only reason I ended up there is because every other flipping parking lot I went by was full. And I was really discouraged, and I kept getting closer and closer to home. And finally, I'm like, you know what? Screw it. If this doesn't work, I'm just going to go home and sleep for the afternoon and enjoy November the 3rd and wait till November 13th when I had my vacation scheduled. And when I got up there, I took a different way in only because of the intel I had gained from hunting there before. And once you looked at it from a different way, and that'll play out in the web show that we have. But once you're able to see that path of least resistance, I'm going to call it, for them to get from point A to point B to accomplish the goal of breeding. I think that's a big key to success, is finding that special spot or that terrain feature. And Brad Lamont talked about things of that nature. But one thing, you talked about being secretive, and I had Dan Infault on, or we've had Dan Infault on a couple times, and some other folks, and everybody is pretty secretive, and I never was. I was always pretty open with my neighbors, just because I felt like it was being a good steward of the whole process, really. It creates a more of a sense of a team, and because there's so many people that hunted in the block that I hunt, I just felt like it was for the better. Man, I just completely changed that this year. I shot this deer. I drug it forever, like 1,000,000 miles, because I didn't pull the cart all the way up there, and I felt like it was going to be downhill. What I forgot about is that he had a wide spread and his horns were going to catch on everything, and then I was so secretive about it. I didn't even want to gut him in the woods, and I knew I could gut him in the stream that was there, so I gutted him close to the stream and put all the guts in the stream, and then I was thinking, how can I get him out of here without anybody seeing me, because it was a fairly visible spot. Well, I ended up floating him out on this stream. And after I got in my truck and I was driving away, I'm like, I'm absolutely nuts. I pulled the deer out of the stream, and I backed into the driveway that was close to the stream, and I was trying to put a 200-pound deer on the back of my truck by myself, as cars are going by, and every time a car would come by, I'd have to drop the deer back off the tailgate, and then I'd try again, and I couldn't get it, and then I dropped the deer off the tailgate, and then looking back on it, it's like, I guess I'm glad I did it, because I rode up there on Sunday, which was the opening weekend of Wisconsin's gun season, and you know how many people were there? None.
Taylor, hey, the best spots in the world don't stay best spots unless you keep them a secret, and that's just the way it is. I've had, over the years, I can't tell you how many times that I've been on deer and had other guys move right in on me because I told them I was on deer. Good friends. It just happens. Inevitably, we all have that passion. We all want to chase a good deer. If somebody else is on them, you want to be by that guy. And so that's when I kind of started just hunting alone a little bit more, just because I wanted to be able to do my own thing. And I wanted to really test myself and see how test myself against some of the biggest whitetails in the world. What else could you ask for? But the more humans you have involved, the more complicated it becomes. And so that's kind of why I really do enjoy self-filming, even just because I can, eliminate possibilities or issues that, happen. Not to say Kyle is an issue. He is not. He's awesome. But having a cameraman in camp full time and trying to be a good husband, trying to run businesses, and try to do it all, it's a lot. And it takes its toll on me. So I've found that I enjoy hunting better alone, and it's less stressful at home in my family life. And it's very important to me that I keep my family. I don't want to go through a hunting style divorce because no buck's worth that. And I've seen so many guys that have taken that trail. So that's where I had to draw the line and just say, I can't do all this stuff. I have to cut some of these things out. So self-filming kind of has been my release, or my ability to do that. If you take on filming full time with a cameraman, we did it for 7 years or something. You know what that means. I mean, it's a lot of sacrifice, and sometimes it really means hurting your hunting, because when you got a cameraman around, it just changes the dynamic. You can't hunt in the spots that you want to hunt or you need to hunt sometimes. And in some cases, you overhunt spots because the cameraman's there and you're paying him, or there's a situation where, you're not going to stay at home. What's the cameraman going to do? So it's tough. It adds an element of difficulty. And to be honest, where I killed Walter Payton, no way in hell was there going to be a cameraman in that spot with me.
No, I offered to take my vacation in Iowa. I would have been there. Yep. I absolutely would have been there, and you probably would not have hunted that stand because I would have been there. Nope. I absolutely. And hey, you know what I just thought of? You know when I killed Elvis? November 15th.
Did you? That's my favorite day. It's why I killed the tree shredder all those years ago.
Oh, really?
Yep. It's where I also remember when I blew it on the shipwreck.
Yep.
That was November 15th. Where we would have been, Jason, if you were in camp, we would have been in the adjacent food plot in the ground blind, but it was like 55 degrees, blowing like crazy, and I knew, that's a great place to go sit in a nice comfy blind and to get beautiful video footage, and it makes it almost impossible to kill them if you're self-filming, but that's where we would have been. And do you want to know what my guesstimation of the odds of us seeing Walter Payton in the broad daylight, even at 100 yards out there? It would not have happened. He didn't, because he didn't have to. They're not on a scenic tour, man. He can go right through the doe bedding area at 2:00 in the afternoon, knowing that any doe in the area is bedded in there right then. At last light, where are the does? They're everywhere, man. That's why midday hunts in doe bedding areas, late morning hunts in doe bedding areas, forget about it.
Well, there you have it, my interview with Todd about harvesting Walter Payton. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you equally enjoy the web show. It's going to be pretty spectacular. I've been able to see some of the footage, and just all of the history that he's got with this deer just makes it an incredible story. So with that, a couple short messages, and I'll close the show out for the day. Hope you all have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Just as a reminder, Ozonics is still offering their $100 off, as far as we know, through the end of November. At this point, it could shut off at any point in time. It just says for a limited time. As far as I know, it's through the end of November, but I wouldn't wait a whole lot longer. If your plan is to get one of those for Christmas, or your wife's thinking about getting one for Christmas, let her listen to this, and hopefully that puts her or him or whomever over the edge. So with that, have yourself a great rest of your day, and again, have a great Thanksgiving. Jason out.